deep within the sun-drenched heart of an unnamed African forest, where ancient baobabs pierced the endless blue sky and the whispers of unseen creatures danced on the humid air, lay a secret that would soon unravel with astonishing implications. It began, as many extraordinary tales do, with a seemingly innocuous discovery. 3 tiny, dust-mottled kittens huddled together in the dappled shade of an acacia tree. Their eyes, still partially fused, held a vulnerability that instantly tugged at the heartstrings of the woman who found them, setting in motion a chain of events far wilder than anything she could have imagined. This was not merely the rescue of lost pets. It was the prelude to an unbelievable revelation, a mystery wrapped in fur and purrs that would challenge everything she knew about the continent she called home. Before we dive deeper into Sarah's extraordinary story, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you don't miss our future explorations into incredible animal encounters. Our protagonist, Sarah, was an American expat, a renowned wildlife photographer and dedicated conservationist whose passion had led her to settle in a remote village bordering a sprawling national park. Her small, unassuming home, built from local materials, blended seamlessly into the landscape, much like Sarah herself had integrated into the rhythms of daily life there. With a camera often slung over her shoulder and a notebook never far from reach, she spent her days documenting the incredible biodiversity of the region, from the majestic elephants that ambled through the savanna to the elusive pangolins that scurried underfoot. Her love for animals was not just professional. It was a deeply ingrained part of her being, a guiding force that shaped her every decision. The local community had embraced her, respecting her tireless efforts to protect their shared natural heritage, and she, in turn, had learned the intricate dance of life observed for generations in this ancient land. Her routine was a comforting blend of early morning expeditions, hours spent patiently waiting for the perfect shot, and evenings dedicated to developing film and penning detailed observations. It was during one such photographic excursion, deep within a particularly dense part of the forest, far from any human settlement, that Sarah stumbled upon her unexpected discovery. The air was thick with the scent of damp earth and exotic blossoms, the canopy above a dense tapestry of green that filtered the sunlight into ethereal shafts. She was tracking a rare species of forest antelope when a faint, high-pitched mewling caught her ear, incongruous with the usual symphony of the jungle. Following the sound, she pushed through a final curtain of thick foliage, and there they were. 3 small, impossibly cute kittens, no bigger than her palm. They were a mottled fawn and brown, with stripes that seemed almost too defined for domestic cats, and eyes that held an unnerving intensity, even in their half-opened state. They appeared utterly alone, tiny bundles of helplessness abandoned to the vastness of the wilderness. Sarah's first instinct, overriding any scientific caution, was pure, unadulterated compassion. They were so small, so vulnerable, clearly too young to survive on their own. While their markings were unusual, resembling some wild felines she'd seen in books, she dismissed it, attributing it to a unique local breed of domestic cat. Perhaps a mother had gone hunting and gotten lost, or worse, fallen victim to a predator. The forest was a harsh mistress, unyielding in its demands. There was no sign of a parent anywhere, no tracks leading away, just these 3 tiny, shivering lives. Without a moment's hesitation, her conservationist ethos momentarily eclipsed by her innate desire to care for the defenseless, Sarah carefully scooped them up, one by one. Their small bodies were surprisingly warm, their soft purrs, though weak, a testament to their will to live. As she cradled them close, their unusual stripes and piercing gaze seemed to deepen, a subtle hint of the extraordinary journey they were about to embark upon, one that would redefine the very meaning of domestic for Sarah. She knew she couldn't leave them. Rescue was her only option. Sarah carefully brought the 3 tiny kittens back to her modest home, a sanctuary nestled on the edge of the sprawling African wilderness. Her immediate priority was to provide them with warmth and nourishment. She fashioned a makeshift bed from an old basket lined with soft cloths, placing it near the gentle heat of a solar lamp. With a small syringe, she painstakingly fed them warmed goat's milk, watching as their fragile bodies slowly gained strength. Her heart swelled with a mixture of relief and a fierce protectiveness. The little creatures, no bigger than her palm, seemed incredibly vulnerable, yet there was an undeniable wildness in their bright, unblinking eyes. However, her initial joy soon began to mingle with a growing sense of unease. As days turned into a week, the kittens displayed characteristics that were far from typical domestic felines. Their play, initially endearing, quickly escalated into roughhousing with startling intensity. Their claws, though still small, were incredibly sharp, tearing through the cushions and blankets Sarah had provided with alarming ease. When she tried to cuddle them, they would often squirm away, their little bodies surprisingly rigid and resistant to prolonged human contact. Their cries, rather than the expected gentle meows, were often raspy, almost guttural, a sound that resonated with a primal edge. The first significant obstacle was their inherent wild nature. Despite Sarah's constant efforts to socialize them, to coax them into purring contentment, they remained aloof, their instincts overriding any attempts at domestication. Their growth rate was astonishing. Within a few short weeks, they were noticeably larger than any domestic kitten of the same age, their muscles lean and powerful even in their still developing frames. Their paws seemed disproportionately big, and their ears, pointed and tufted, suggested something altogether different. What Sarah had initially dismissed as unusual markings now appeared more pronounced. Distinct dark spots and stripes across their tawny fur, far too intricate for any common house cat. Her assistant, a seasoned tracker named Django, watched them with a quiet, knowing apprehension. "These are not mere cats, Sarah," he had observed one evening, his voice low and tinged with concern. "Their spirit is too strong, too wild for the home." Even some of the local villagers, accustomed to all manner of bush creatures, would eye the kittens with a respectful distance, murmuring in their native tongue about the little spirits of the forest. These concerns, combined with the kittens' increasingly aggressive play, left Sarah feeling a gnawing anxiety. What had she stumbled upon? Determined to understand what she had rescued, Sarah began dedicating hours to online research, her small satellite internet connection struggling to load images of various wild cat species. She scoured veterinary forums and wildlife identification guides, cross-referencing their physical traits and behaviors. She looked at servals, caracals, even small civet cats. Nothing quite matched. Some features were similar, but the overall presentation remained elusive. The ambiguity only deepened her confusion, yet simultaneously, her attachment to the little creatures grew stronger. She had saved them. They were her responsibility, her unexpected family. The situation was becoming emotionally complex, intertwined with a deepening mystery. Their rapid growth and increasingly challenging behavior, coupled with the locals' quiet warnings, soon made it clear that her home, however loving, was not the right environment for them. It became undeniable. She needed professional help. The decision was made. She would take them to the nearest veterinary clinic, hoping for answers, even if they were not the ones she expected. The drive to the nearest veterinary clinic was a grueling journey, a stark reminder of Sarah's remote existence. The small, rugged truck bounced over dirt tracks and wound through winding mountain passes, each bump and sway a test of patience for both Sarah and her increasingly agitated feline passengers. The clinic, a small, rather unassuming building, was several hours away in a larger, bustling town, a world removed from the quiet solitude of her village. She had carefully placed the 3 growing kittens in a sturdy but well-ventilated carrier, lined with soft blankets. Even with the familiar scent of her home clinging to the fabric, the confinement clearly bothered them. Their constant low growls and sharp, almost hissing cries pierced the air, a sound far more primal than any domestic cat could produce. Their small paws, now equipped with surprisingly robust and sharp claws, scratched restlessly against the mesh of the carrier. Sarah spoke to them softly, trying to soothe their wild anxieties, but her voice held a tremor of her own increasing concern. She wrestled with a complex internal struggle. On one hand, her deep affection for these creatures, who had become her unexpected companions, tugged at her heart. She worried for their discomfort, their fear. On the other, their escalating wildness, their sheer physical power even at their young age, was becoming undeniable. The playful nips had grown into painful bites, the innocent scratches into deep gouges. Her emotional bond was strong, yet the logical part of her mind, the conservationist's mind, knew that what she had was far more than just 3 adorable kittens. Upon arrival, the small clinic waiting room was thankfully empty, allowing Sarah to quickly bring the carrier inside. The veterinarian, a cautious and experienced woman named Dr. Anya Sharma, emerged from her examination room, her brow furrowed with a mild curiosity as Sarah explained her predicament. Dr. Sharma was known throughout the region for her encyclopedic knowledge of local wildlife and her calm, unflappable demeanor. But as Sarah began to recount the story of finding the kittens in the forest, their unusual behavior, and their rapid growth, a flicker of something new crossed Dr. Sharma's thoughtful face. A hint of immediate recognition, perhaps, or a deepening suspicion. The moment the carrier was opened, the true nature of its occupants began to unfold. One of the kittens, bolder than the others, immediately tried to scramble out, its powerful little legs propelling it forward with surprising force. Dr. Sharma, with practiced ease, gently but firmly secured the creature, her movements deft and confident. Her initial examination was meticulous, her fingers tracing the contours of their developing musculature, inspecting their teeth, feeling the texture of their fur. Her expression remained neutral, but the intensity in her eyes betrayed her growing intrigue. She observed their unique coat patterns, the distinctive tufts on their ears that Sarah had previously dismissed as merely unusual, and the unmistakable, short, bobbed tails. Red flags, invisible to Sarah, were immediately apparent to the seasoned vet. Dr. Sharma then began a thorough examination, comparing the kitten's physical characteristics to various wildlife identification guides she kept on hand. She consulted digital databases, cross-referencing markings, paw prints, and head shapes. She even made a discreet phone call to a colleague known for their expertise in wild felines, speaking in hushed tones, describing the creatures with a precision that chilled Sarah to the bone. The air in the small examination room grew thick with unspoken implications. Finally, Dr. Sharma turned back to Sarah, her expression now a mixture of professional certainty and profound concern. "Sarah," she began, her voice gentle but firm, "these are not domestic cats, not even a wild African species that I recognize." She paused, letting the weight of her words settle. "Based on their unique characteristics, The ear tufts, the short tails, their specific coat pattern, and remarkably, their documented aggression even at this age, I am almost certain. She looked directly into Sarah's eyes, her voice dropping to a near whisper. These are young bobcats. A wave of disbelief washed over Sarah, a cold shock that penetrated her very core. Bobcats? A species native to North America, thousands of miles away? The revelation was earth-shattering. Dr. Sharma continued, "This is an anomaly of the highest order. For them to be here, in Africa, and so young, it suggests only one thing: illegal wildlife trade. Someone brought them here, perhaps for a private collection, or as part of a smuggling operation, and then abandoned them." The implications were staggering, throwing Sarah's entire understanding of her rescue on its head and opening a Pandora's box of ethical, logistical, and profoundly dangerous questions. The news hit Sarah like a physical blow, leaving her breathless and disoriented. Bobcats. The words echoed in her mind, a discordant symphony of shock, confusion, and a burgeoning sense of dread. Her initial reaction was pure, unadulterated disbelief. How could these tiny, seemingly helpless creatures she had nursed back to health be something so utterly foreign, so dangerously wild? She had pictured them as an unusual breed of African wildcat, perhaps, something exotic but still within the realm of her conservation experience. But bobcats? It was an impossible, fantastical notion, yet Dr. Sharma's unwavering certainty and the cold, hard evidence laid out before them left no room for doubt. The veterinarian carefully explained the immediate ethical and logistical challenges. Caring for wild bobcats, even young ones, in an African setting was fraught with peril. These weren't pets. They were apex predators in miniature, and their natural instincts, though dormant for a time under Sarah's nurturing, would inevitably emerge with devastating force. Dr. Sharma outlined their specialized dietary needs, their need for vast territories, and the inherent danger they posed to any human or domestic animal once they reached maturity. The gravitas of the situation settled heavily upon Sarah. The kittens, her beloved rescues, were now a monumental, almost insurmountable problem. Dr. Sharma, observing Sarah's turmoil, gently reiterated her theory. The bobcats were almost certainly victims of an illegal wildlife trade. Someone, somewhere, had smuggled them into Africa, perhaps believing they could be sold for a high price in some clandestine market, or perhaps even as an exotic pet for a wealthy, unscrupulous collector. But something had gone wrong. The risks became too high, the transaction fell through, or the logistics proved too complicated. Abandonment, in such a scenario, was tragically common. They were disposable commodities to their captors, left to die in a foreign land. The thought made Sarah's stomach churn with anger and sorrow. Tracing their origin, Dr. Sharma admitted, would be a near impossible task, especially with the limited resources available. The focus now had to be on the live animals in front of them. The immediate need, Dr. Sharma stressed, was to find a suitable sanctuary or rehabilitation center, a place equipped to handle such unique and potentially dangerous animals, a place that could understand their specific needs, and crucially, understand their North American origins. What followed was a whirlwind of desperate calls and increasingly frustrating conversations. Sarah, armed with Dr. Sharma's diagnosis and a rapidly shrinking window of opportunity, began reaching out to wildlife organizations and sanctuaries across Africa. She explained the bizarre situation, the unlikely presence of bobcats on the continent, the urgent need for placement. Each call was met with a mixture of polite skepticism, outright refusal, or a genuine, albeit regretful, inability to help. "We deal with African species," was a common disheartening refrain. "We are not equipped for foreign felines." She even extended her search to organizations known for international wildlife rescue, tentatively inquiring about possible repatriation avenues to North America. The logistical nightmare of such an undertaking was staggering, and the cost astronomical. Rejection after rejection chipped away at her hope, leaving her feeling increasingly isolated and burdened. Time was of the essence. The bobcats, though still relatively small, were growing at an alarming rate, their playful nips becoming sharper, their pounces stronger. Her small home, once a safe haven, was rapidly becoming inadequate, even dangerous. The urgency of the situation pressed down on her, a suffocating weight of responsibility. She had saved them from the forest, but now she had to save them from the impossible predicament they found themselves in. A predicament entirely of human making. The thought of what would happen if she failed, if these magnificent creatures couldn't find a proper home, was a cold, constant dread. The revelation that her beloved kittens were actually bobcats, species native to North America, completely upended Sarah's world. The initial shock quickly gave way to a burgeoning sense of urgency. The tiny, helpless furballs she had lovingly nursed back to health were growing at an alarming rate, their predatory instincts becoming more pronounced with each passing day. What started as playful pounces now carried a disturbing intensity, their sharp claws and surprisingly powerful jaws making it clear they were not meant for a domestic setting. Her small, humble home, once a sanctuary for them, was rapidly becoming inadequate. She found herself constantly rearranging furniture, creating makeshift barriers, and securing every possible exit point, fearing what might happen if one of them managed to slip outside. Providing them with adequate care was an immense struggle. Their diet, once simple kitten formula, had rapidly shifted to requiring specialized, high-protein meats, which were not only expensive, but incredibly difficult to source in her remote village. The local butcher, accustomed to Sarah's usual requests for fresh produce, looked at her with growing suspicion when she started asking for large quantities of specific cuts of game. Veterinary consultations, now focused on the complex needs of wild felines, added an enormous financial strain. Dr. Sharma, though sympathetic, had to charge for her specialized advice and the highly specific supplements the bobcats required. Sarah found herself dipping into her savings, then her emergency fund, and finally contemplating selling some of her valuable photographic equipment to cover the escalating costs. The emotional toll was equally heavy. The adorable purring creatures of just weeks ago were now demanding unpredictable adolescence, increasingly exhibiting behaviors that screamed wild. The search for a permanent, appropriate home for the bobcats was fraught with setbacks and frustrations. Sarah spent countless hours on the phone, often holding for what felt like an eternity, trying to connect with wildlife sanctuaries and rescue organizations. Each call began with a hopeful explanation, quickly turning into a disheartening rejection. "Bobcats in Africa? Are you certain?" was a common, disbelieving response. The fact that these animals were a North American species was the primary obstacle. African sanctuaries were equipped to handle lions, leopards, cheetahs, and servals, but none had the expertise or facilities for bobcats. The logistical nightmare of repatriating them to North America was deemed too complex and expensive, often dismissed as an impossible undertaking for 3 young, non-native animals. The clock was ticking and the risks mounted. If the local authorities, or even more dangerously, illegal wildlife trade investigators, discovered Sarah harboring 3 North American bobcats, the consequences could be dire. She knew that in many cases, non-native wild animals found outside of licensed facilities were subject to immediate confiscation and often euthanasia to prevent ecological disruption or disease transmission. The thought of her bobcats, whom she had rescued and loved, meeting such a fate was unbearable. She became increasingly secretive, only trusting a select few close friends and Dr. Sharma with the truth. Just as despair began to set in, a faint glimmer of hope appeared. Dr. Sharma, relentless in her own efforts, remembered an obscure referral from a conservation conference years ago. It was for a highly specialized wildlife rescue and rehabilitation center situated deep within South Africa, renowned for its work with large felines, particularly those rescued from exotic pet trades or illegal circuses. They had an impressive track record with lion cubs, cheetahs, and even some rare tiger species. Though they had never handled bobcats, Dr. Sharma believed their expertise and state-of-the-art facilities might make them open to an unprecedented challenge. After extensive, impassioned pleading from Sarah, detailing the bobcats' unique predicament and their unlikely arrival in Africa, the center's director, Dr. Lena Hansen, expressed an initial, hesitant interest. It wasn't a yes, but it wasn't a no either. It was the first door that hadn't slammed shut in Sarah's face, and it was enough to reignite her fading hope. The monumental task of arranging the bobcats' transportation from a remote African village to a specialized facility in South Africa loomed large, almost insurmountable in its complexity. Sarah felt a profound shift in her purpose. No longer was she simply caring for abandoned kittens, but orchestrating an international rescue mission for 3 wild animals far from their natural habitat. The first hurdle was navigating the labyrinthine bureaucracy of international wildlife transfer. Permits were required from both the fictional African nation and South Africa, each demanding extensive documentation, health certificates, and assurances of the bobcats' welfare and eventual destination. Dr. Sharma, with her network of contacts, became an invaluable ally, dedicating countless hours to cutting through red tape and liaising with government agencies. Next came the practicalities of the journey itself. The bobcats, now significantly larger and more powerful, required specialized crates designed for wild feline transport, sturdy, well-ventilated, and escape-proof. These were not readily available in the nearest town, necessitating custom construction by local carpenters working from detailed specifications provided by Dr. Sharma. Health checks were mandatory, requiring several visits from Dr. Sharma to Sarah's remote home, each visit a minor logistical feat in itself. The bobcats, despite Sarah's best efforts at gentle handling, remained inherently wild, making examinations challenging and often requiring mild sedation. Their stress levels were a constant concern, and Sarah meticulously planned their diet and environment to minimize anxiety leading up to the departure. As news of Sarah's unusual charges and her audacious plans spread through the village, a wave of community support enveloped her. The local villagers, who had initially eyed the growing felines with a mixture of awe and apprehension, now saw them as a testament to Sarah's extraordinary compassion. They had watched her struggle, witnessed her unwavering dedication, and now they wanted to help. Farmers offered strong hands to help load crates, women prepared provisions for Sarah's journey, and even the children, who had been fascinated by the forest cats, contributed their meager savings to a collection pot for fuel and unforeseen expenses. There was a palpable sense of shared purpose, a collective effort to give these magnificent creatures a second chance. The emotional goodbyes from the villagers were heartfelt, a somber procession as the customized vehicle, rented specifically for the arduous trip, prepared to depart. Sarah felt a lump in her throat, overwhelmed by their kindness and the weight of the responsibility she carried. The perilous journey itself was a grueling test of endurance and resolve. The first leg involved several days of driving across vast, challenging terrain, navigating poorly maintained dirt roads and dodging wandering livestock. The Bobcats, though sedated, still vocalized their displeasure, their low growls and agitated movements a constant reminder of their wild nature. Bureaucratic delays at border crossings became a recurring nightmare, each stop threatening to derail the meticulously planned schedule. Officials, unfamiliar with Bobcats, often questioned the validity of the permits, leading to hours of tense negotiations and frantic phone calls to Dr. Sharma for verification. Then came the inevitable vehicle breakdown in the middle of a desolate stretch of road, an old engine finally succumbing to the relentless demands of the journey. Stranded under the unforgiving African sun, Sarah's determination was sorely tested. Yet, the same community spirit that had seen her off now manifested in unexpected ways, as passing truckers, hearing of her plight, offered assistance, sharing tools and spare parts until the vehicle was reluctantly coaxed back to life. Every obstacle, every setback, only hardened Sarah's resolve. She knew the Bobcats' lives depended on her unwavering perseverance, and she pushed forward, her eyes fixed on the distant promise of their new home in South Africa. The journey was not just a physical movement across continents. It was a testament to the extraordinary lengths one woman would go to honor a commitment to life. The final leg of the journey was marked by a profound sense of anticipation, a nervous energy that thrummed through the specialized transport vehicle as it finally rolled onto the paved roads leading to the South African Rehabilitation Center. Sarah's heart hammered against her ribs, a mixture of exhaustion and exhilaration churning within her. The landscape had transformed, from the rugged, untamed wilderness of her home to the more manicured, yet still vast and wild expanse surrounding the sanctuary. As the gates swung open, revealing meticulously maintained enclosures nestled within natural bushveld, a wave of relief washed over her so potent it nearly brought her to her knees. This was it. This was the place where her Bobcats would finally find their true home. Upon arrival, the center's staff, a team of dedicated wildlife experts, greeted them with a professional yet palpable apprehension. They had heard the extraordinary tale, of course, but seeing the three magnificent, if somewhat disheveled, young Bobcats emerge from their travel crates was a different experience entirely. These were not the sleek, indigenous African cats they were accustomed to. These were distinctively North American, a living enigma transported across an ocean. The center's head veterinarian, Dr. Lena Hansen, a woman whose calm demeanor belied decades of experience with dangerous predators, oversaw the careful transfer. Each Bobcat was gently coaxed into a temporary holding pen within a larger enclosure, their eyes wide with a mixture of fear and barely contained wildness. Their initial fear was a raw, primal thing. For days, they cowered in corners, hissing at their new caretakers, their tiny, powerful bodies tense with distrust. But slowly, gradually, the vastness of their new habitat began to work its magic. The enclosures were not mere cages. They were meticulously designed microcosms of their natural environment, complete with climbing structures, dense foliage for hiding, and natural water features. Here, for the first time since their abandonment in the African woods, the Bobcats had space to truly be wild. Sarah watched, mesmerized, as one of them, the boldest of the trio, tentatively stepped out, its muscles rippling beneath its spotted fur, its keen eyes scanning the new territory. The others soon followed, their initial confusion slowly giving way to their inherent instincts. They stalked imaginary prey, practiced their pounces in the tall grass, and even, to Sarah's immense satisfaction, engaged in playful, if rough, wrestling matches that spoke of their growing comfort and confidence. It was during this initial acclimatization period that the center's experts conducted their thorough assessment. Dr. Hansen confirmed their true species without a shadow of a doubt, marveling at their robust health despite their extraordinary journey. The discussion then turned to the critical rehabilitation plan. The immediate goal was to allow them to fully express their natural behaviors, to dehumanize them as much as possible, preparing them for a life without constant human intervention. The long-term vision, a truly ambitious one, was aimed at eventual reintroduction into a suitable North American reserve. This would be a monumental undertaking, requiring extensive genetic testing, coordination with international wildlife agencies, and securing a safe, protected habitat free from existing bobcat populations to ensure no ecological disruption. It was a testament to the center's commitment and Sarah's unwavering advocacy that such a grand plan was even considered. Then came the moment Sarah had both yearned for and dreaded, her emotional farewell. Standing at the perimeter of the vast enclosure, watching the three powerful creatures, so utterly self-sufficient and wild, her heart was a tangled knot of conflicting emotions. There was an undeniable, profound sense of loss, a sharp pang in her chest as she realized her direct role in their lives was now over. The playful nips, the purrs that had once vibrated through her home, the tiny, helpless kittens she had cradled, they were gone, replaced by these magnificent, independent predators. But alongside the sadness was an immense wave of relief and pride. She had given them a second chance, a true shot at a wild life, a destiny they deserved. Her journey with them had been one of sacrifice, of countless sleepless nights and relentless effort, but above all, it had been an odyssey of unconditional love. As the sun began to dip below the horizon, casting long shadows over the enclosure, Sarah whispered a final goodbye, tears blurring her vision. She knew, with every fiber of her being, that this was not an end, but a glorious new beginning for her bobcats. Upon their arrival at the South African Rehabilitation Center, a palpable sense of relief washed over Sarah, quickly followed by a fresh wave of anxiety. The journey had been arduous, a relentless gauntlet of challenges, but the true test now began. The center's staff, a group of dedicated professionals with years of experience handling large, often dangerous felines, greeted them with a mixture of professional curiosity and cautious skepticism. They were accustomed to lions, leopards, and cheetahs, but North American bobcats, in the heart of Africa, were an entirely new proposition. Dr. Anya Sharma's detailed reports and Sarah's impassioned pleas had secured their commitment, but the sight of the three sleek, muscular young cats in their travel crates still elicited raised eyebrows and hushed consultations. The careful release of the bobcats into their new, expansive enclosures was a moment etched forever in Sarah's memory. Designed to mimic their natural habitat as closely as possible, the enclosures boasted rocky outcrops, dense vegetation, and even small streams. Initially, the bobcats were hesitant, their amber eyes darting nervously, their bodies low to the ground. They had spent weeks in confinement, their wild instincts dulled by the constant human presence and the unnatural environment of Sarah's home. But as the enclosure gates swung open, revealing the vastness before them, a subtle shift occurred. A primal curiosity, long suppressed, began to stir. One by one, they tentatively emerged, their padded paws silently exploring the unfamiliar terrain. The smallest, often the most timid, was the first to scale a low-hanging branch. his lithe body moving with an innate grace that sent a shiver down Sarah's spine. The others soon followed, their fear slowly giving way to exploration. It was a breathtaking transformation, watching the domestic facade crumble, revealing the magnificent wild animals beneath. The center's experts, observing from a distance, confirmed their true species without a shadow of a doubt. They outlined a meticulously planned rehabilitation program designed to gradually rewild the bobcats, honing their hunting skills and minimizing human interaction, with the ultimate, ambitious goal of eventual reintroduction into a suitable North American reserve. The complexities of such a repatriation, involving international treaties and extensive biological assessments, were immense. But for the first time, Sarah felt a genuine flicker of hope for their future. Sarah's emotional farewell was a bittersweet symphony of relief and profound loss. Standing before the enclosure, watching the bobcats stalk through the tall grass, truly wild at last, tears welled in her eyes. She had rescued them from certain death, nurtured them, and transported them across a continent. The journey had been one of sacrifice, relentless effort, and unconditional love. Now, she was giving them the ultimate gift, their freedom, their wildness. There was a deep ache in her heart, a void left by their absence, but it was overshadowed by immense pride. She had not kept them as pets. She had been their temporary guardian, guiding them back to where they belonged. The realization hit her with the force of a physical blow. Her journey with them was not about possession, but about liberation. In the months that followed, updates from the rehabilitation center became the highlight of Sarah's life. The bobcats thrived, gaining muscle and confidence, their predatory instincts sharpened through carefully managed training exercises. The center's dedicated team documented their progress, sending Sarah videos and photographs that showed 3 powerful, sleek hunters, indistinguishable from their wild counterparts. While the complexities of repatriation to North America remained a formidable hurdle, discussions were progressing, and several suitable reserves had expressed interest. If direct reintroduction proved too difficult, the center assured her they would continue to provide a lifelong, naturalistic sanctuary for them, a testament to their commitment. Sarah, back in her African village, reflected on her extraordinary experience. It had been a stark reminder of the fragility of wildlife, the intricate balance of ecosystems, and the devastating impact of illegal trade. Her dedication to conservation had deepened, transforming into a passionate advocacy against the illicit wildlife market that had brought these bobcats to her doorstep. The unexpected lessons learned about perseverance, about the intrinsic value of every life, about the profound bond she had formed with these wild creatures, reshaped her understanding of her place in the world. Her remarkable journey with the bobcat stood as a powerful testament to the hidden wonders and dangers of the natural world, a compelling narrative of survival, compassion, and the enduring human spirit. It underscored the vital importance of protecting all creatures, even those found far from their ancestral homes, highlighting that every intervention, every act of kindness, ripples through the delicate tapestry of life, making a profound difference. If Sarah's incredible journey touched your heart, please like this video and share it with someone who needs a dose of inspiration. And don't forget to subscribe for more remarkable stories from the animal kingdom. What rare animal encounter would you like us to explore next?